All right, guys, I've always said that I have an encyclopedic-like knowledge of Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, Fire and Blood, whatever you want to call it. And I'm ready to prove it. So what I'm going to do here is just riff from right off of memory every Targaryen king that sat the throne, and I'll try to tell a quick little story about each of them, starting with Aegon the Conqueror. So most of us know Aegon the Conqueror. He's the first Targaryen to fly over and conquer Westeros and become king. So we start with Aegon the Conqueror. He has a whole story against conquest. Up next, we have his son, Aenys, or Aenys, however you want to pronounce it. Aenys, Eenys, was Aegon's son, and he actually had a brother, Maegor, and Aenys was kind of like a weakling. He could never live up to his father's shadow, and long story short, a bunch of things conspire because he's kind of weak and ineffectual, and when he dies, his brother Maegor, who would be known as Maegor the Cruel, usurps the throne, kills Aenys' oldest son, Aegon the Uncrowned, takes the throne, has a reign of terror. Maegor is a sick fuck. He just enjoys brutalizing and sexualizing, and he's just a sicko. He built a castle that, a lot of the show takes place in at King's Landing. It's Maegor's Holdfast. He's a sick fuck. Eventually, he dies, whether he's killed, it's suicide, or maybe the throne rejects him because he dies on the throne bleeding. We get Jaehaerys. Now, Jaehaerys has a whole story that's told in Fire and Blood. He is the longest reigning Targaryen king. I think he reigns for like 60 years or something like that. He marries his sister, the good queen Alysanne. They reign for quite some time, and they have a lot of children. This actually creates an issue with the succession later on because their immediate heirs die, and this is where House of the Dragon actually begins, right at the Council of 101, the Great Council of 101, where all the great lords assemble to determine who will be the heir. There's a lot of, we're not going with a woman here. There's a little bit of that in the past, too. And the council determines that after Jaehaerys, we have Viserys I. Now, I won't recount all the stuff that we know happens in House of the Dragon, which is similar to Fire and Blood. But obviously, when Viserys dies, his son, Aegon II, usurps the throne from Rhaenyra. Now, Rhaenyra's reign is not usually recognized. I'm going to go with, after Jaehaerys, we have Aegon II / Rhaenyra. I'm going to spoil a little bit here, so maybe skip forward a minute, because I'm about to tell you what happens pretty much at the end of House of the Dragon. But 3, 2, 1. Aegon outlives Rhaenyra, technically, so we could say that, Aegon II really was the rightful king, but he doesn't last long. And after him, again, without spoiling too much, we get Aegon III, Aegon the Younger, who is the son of, again, skip forward, Daemon and Rhaenyra. So Aegon III is a child king that grows up with Regency, which was strained at times, to say the least. There's a whole story there. This is pretty much where the Fire and Blood book ends. It goes through the reign of Aegon III. He is traumatized by the events that unfold throughout House of the Dragon, Fire and Blood, the Dance of the Dragons, the whole Civil War. He's very traumatized, particularly at what happens to his mother. So his reign was a little weird and a little dark and somber. He does have a brother, Viserys, as well, who is also the son of Daemon and Rhaenyra. He's missing for a little while, and then his brother comes back. But Aegon III has a couple of children who would inherit the throne. So after Aegon III, we have Daeron II, who conquers Dorne. That's a whole story in and of itself, and Dorne eventually rises up. He goes back to reclaim Dorne and dies in Dorne. So after that, we have Baelor, King Baelor, Baelor the Blessed. He's pretty much like a Pope King of sorts. He kind of tries to turn it into like a religious government. I forget the word for that right now. I'm a little tired. What do you call that? Not a monarchy, not an oligarchy. Damn it, I forget the word, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Anyway, Baelor, the singers and the historians, like to tell nice stories about him, but he was a pretty shitty king. He made a lot of dumb moves just based off of religious premonition. He named some hands that really shouldn't have been named hand just because the gods spoke to him. He tried to make the Citadel replace the ravens with doves just because. So he did a lot of dumb shit that would actually contribute to the next civil war ahead, like locking up his sisters so that he wouldn't be tempted by them. But Baelor the Blessed eventually blessedly dies. He starved himself to death. And then we get Aegon III's brother, Viserys, that I mentioned a little bit earlier. Again, Viserys is also Daemon and Rhaenyra's son. He was Hand of the King pretty much throughout his brother and his two sons' reigns. And then he finally becomes king. He does not reign very long himself. I don't remember if it's like a year or 3 years or something like that, but it's not very long before he suddenly dies and his sick bastard son, well, he's not a bastard actually, he's a sick fuck, but he's not a bastard. His legitimate son, Aegon the Fourth, inherits the throne. Aegon the Fourth, he's known as Aegon the Unworthy. He is a sick bastard. Again, I keep calling him a bastard. He's not a bastard. He's a sick fuck. He is brutal and very lecherous and rapes thousands of women, probably. So he fathers a lot of bastard children. He's not a bastard, but he fathers a lot of bastards. And this actually sets up what's known as the Blackfire Rebellion, because on his deathbed, he legitimizes all of his bastard sons, or his bastard children. So that starts when Daeron II now inherits the throne from his father. He does a lot to try to unify Dorne to the cause. He marries a Dornish, a Martell princess, thus adding Dorne to the royal bloodline. This creates a lot of problems, and we have the Blackfire Rebellion, which is told elsewhere, crazy story in and of itself. But after Daeron II, so Daeron II had 4 sons. This is pretty much right where A Knight of the Seven Kingdom starts, because Egg's father, Maekar, is the 4th born son. The firstborn son is Baelon the Brave, who we see in A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. He's the man. He comes to Dunk's aid, but unfortunately dies, and it's very tragic. He was the heir to the throne. He does have 2 sons who also die. So after him, we get Aerys. This would be Aerys the First. There's not way too much about Aerys the First. He was obsessed with prophecy. He definitely tag teamed with the Blood Raven, and was highly into prophecy. I don't really remember too much about Aerys the First, but he dies, I think, in the Spring Sickness. And after him, we get Maekar, who is Egg's dad. Maekar, I love Maekar. I think they're doing a great job with him on the show. He's a very gruff, grizzled guy. Definitely a very martial king. I think this is around where the War of the Nine Penny Kings starts. You also have a couple of Blackfire rebellions, a couple of generations after the initial. But yeah, we get Maekar. We now are introduced to that character, and after Maekar, who also had 4 sons, Egg being the 4th born son, Egg inherits the throne. So there was a council held to determine who would be named king. The lords didn't really want Egg. I think he was already like 40 years old when he becomes king. But yes, we get Egg. Aegon the 5th is now on the throne. So that doesn't happen for quite some time after A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. There's a whole crazy story. We'd love to tell everything about Egg. But after Egg, we get his son, Jaehaerys. This would be Jaehaerys II. And again, I couldn't tell you too much about Jaehaerys, except that he was Egg's remaining son. He is the father of the Mad King. He married his sister, which Egg didn't want, but he did it anyway. And, of course, this causes more incest to happen. Important note, too, Egg marries a Blackwood. So that means that Egg's children, Jaehaerys, let's say, is half Blackwood, technically. House Blackwood, which we see a little bit of in House of the Dragon. The Three-Eyed Raven is Blackwood, too, by the way. And the reason I mention this is because after this point, all we get is incest for the next couple of generations. Which, if you have somebody that's half Italian, half Irish, that gets with their sister who's half Italian, half Irish, what's the kid going to be? They're not going to be more Italian or more Irish. They're going to be the same thing. They're going to be half Italian, half Irish, right? So if we say 50% Targaryen, which isn't even totally true, because you have House Dane in the bloodline, you have House Martell, you have a little bit of House Arryn, you have House Valerion, you even have House Rogari in the bloodline. But let's just say 50% Targaryen, 50% Blackwood. Again, if father and mother are half and half of both, their kid will be the very same thing. And then if those kids then incest, it's just going to be the same thing. So, by the way, by the end of the Targaryen bloodline, this would mean that Daenerys is actually 50% House Blackwood. But anyway, we have Egg, we have Jaehaerys II, and this I think is also around the time of the War of the Nine Penny Kings. Then after Jaehaerys, we get Aerys, who would be known as the Mad King, who also marries and bangs and makes children with his sister, which of course we know Rhaegar, Viserys, and Daenerys. And that's pretty much where we're at, the end of the Targaryen bloodline. Daenerys never technically rules as Queen of Westeros. Jon Snow, we don't know, but it doesn't seem like he does. And by the end of it, the Targaryen line is, who knows? It's just Jon Snow is the only one remaining that we know of. So that is an account of all of the kings who have sat the throne of Westeros over the span of 300 years or so. Of course, I should mention we had Robert and we have Joffrey and Tommen, and they are part Targaryen. I mean, Robert's grandmother was a Targaryen. She was Egg's daughter. So that is why Robert's actually made king at the end of Robert's rebellion, is he had the blood. If you'd like to know more about Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, Song of Ice and Fire, Fire and Blood, give me a follow. I'm working on a project where we are going to study with a microscope the Targaryen bloodline and how it changes over time. And, again, by the end of the Targaryen bloodline, when you take into account all the mothers and fathers and who actually survives and, the bloodline that survives, again, Daenerys, when you look at her, you see 100% Targaryen, but she's really not. And you'd be very surprised by what the composition looks like at the end. Thanks for listening if you listened this far, and catch you guys next time.